Happy Thursday. How's it going, everyone? How is it going? Last week I celebrated my birthday. Got some champagne and celebration. So again, Happy New Year. How is everybody? How you guys doing? Roger, how's it going? Happy Thursday to you. Mr. Mac, see you guys are in the house as well. Let me just get set up. So today has been a busy day. I was trying to get a money buckets video out, but it didn't get out as quickly as I wanted. Whoa, what's happening here? What's happening here? Let's just move this like this. Oh, did I switch something? What did I do? There we go. Now we back. So today I wanted to chat about specifically. I want to talk about. There we go. And move that there. You guys like the new angle? Is that working for you? So today I wanted to talk about specifically about money buckets and how to set them up and what does it actually mean. The video that I just published onto this channel talked about money buckets and what they actually mean. And specifically, it really comes down to the flow of money that comes to you and then where do you send it afterwards. The biggest thing that most people do, I think the biggest mistake that I personally feel that a lot of people do is that they get money drops into their account. So it's their first money bucket, essentially. I didn't bring my bucket. But I actually like, instead of calling them money buckets, we're going to call them money pools. And what people typically do, and this is what I noticed, and I was doing the same thing as well, where money would funnel into my main checking account. And instantly I'd be like, okay, I need to pay my expenses. And you have to pay your expenses, you have to do that kind of stuff. But the moment that I realized that I'm not taking care of the stuff that I need to take care of, because what would happen? Money would drop into your account, you pay your expenses, and then by the time you're paid everything, there was only like a few dollars left, and you then had to choose if you wanted to put that into a savings account, a spending, and like whatever it was. And because I was doing that, it was just kind of like spending everything that I had, and then deciding, oh, what should I do with that remaining little bit? And because it was so easy to just be in that pattern, it created the wrong kind of habit. So it wasn't until I really started to learn about financial literacy and really try to understand as a freelancer what to do with that money when it comes in. Because as a freelancer, you need to start putting money away. You need to start putting money away for the taxes, for everything. Like there's just so many things that you need to take care of because you are your own business entity, that you need to be responsible for all that. There isn't a higher up in the company that is taking care of those aspects of your business. So having an understanding of how to pool your money, because the first pool is all your earned income, your salary, your freelance gigs, the side hustles, the passive income, that gets funneled in. And then the very first line item that I do every single month is I pay myself first. And that goes into a long-term savings account. That could be either a retirement account, a tax-free account if you have them in your country, any kind of child accounts that would like savings accounts or education accounts. And it's one of those things where when you create that pattern, you actually form that habit where even if it's $10 going into that account, if it's just one account, if you have multiple, that's even better. But if you have one account and you're in that habit, that pattern of putting in that money, you create that habit over the long term and you're just used to it. And if you can set it up automatically, the moment money drops into your account, X amount goes into this other account where you don't even notice it, you don't even see it. And then beyond that, I have my emergency fund, which is, it should be 3 to 6 months of expenses covered, but at the very least, it should be about $2,000 for an unexpected expense that comes up. And so, and so once you have, thank you, liking the new camera angle, no autofocus issues. Yeah, so I've learned a little bit better how to control this camera. Yeah, this is the new setup. There you go. But yeah, so money drops into your account, automatically starts to funnel into your second pool, which is probably your most important pool, the long-term savings accounts. Even if it's $10, I would start with $100 if you can. My main account for my kids, $100 every month goes into that for them, $100 for each of them. And when I have more, I put in more. But automatically, that's something that happens every single month. And then you have your emergency fund, which should have at least $2,000 in there consistently. And the more you can grow it over the long term to get to the 3 to 6 months of your full expenses, that's ideal. Now, when I first heard this was one of those drops where it's like how do you do that? How do you just get 3 to 6 months worth of expenses? It made no sense to me. It was actually hard to contemplate. It was really hard to understand. And that was because the second part of that info was never really communicated. If it takes you 5 years to set it up, that's how long it takes, which is okay. It's completely okay to have a slow growing emergency fund that is your 3 to 6 month expenditure. It's something that you just keep adding into without even thinking about touching it. That is the pool that happens when COVID lands and there isn't 6 months worth of work. And that's essentially what happened with me, where I had to dry that up over those first 6 months of 2020 because work just dried up. And now I'm still in the process of rebuilding it, because there is no quick way to just rebuild that money unless you inherit it or you drop into a great opportunity that pays for that kind of stuff. So when you have the patience and you set that goal, it doesn't matter how long it takes you to set it up, because even in downturns, you can still put in a little bit of money. And if you can't, you need to pull it up because it's an emergency. That's when you use it, and it's okay. So checking account funnels into your long-term savings, and then from a checking, you don't take the money from the long-term. So your checking account funnels into your long-term, then it funnels into your emergency fund. And then I have a third account, which covers short-term investments. So it's when I want to buy a new piece of gear, when I want to save money for that vacation, I put it into that account. Because if I keep it in my main checking account, this was another big issue, having all the money in one account and trying to keep dibs on it and how much should be for what, it doesn't work. Well, it didn't work for me. And that was the turning point. Once I did separate into multiple accounts, it actually became much easier for me to manage the expectations. So I put the money into all those accounts, and then even the short term, I call it the fun account. This is an idea that a lot of people talk about, but it is important to know where your fun money is and how much you have. Because if you have that account and you've put money into it, So after you put into your long-term investments, your emergency fund is all set for the month, and then you put into your like home rentals, your car, the new car that you want to buy, a new piece of gear. You know that the money's there. It just becomes a lot easier to be able to borrow from yourself to pay for something than putting it onto a credit card and then hoping to pay for it with future income. And it's really hard. Don't get me wrong. Like, it's not an easy way to think about it, and it's not an easy way to set it up, especially if you have all your expenses kind of perfectly plotted out. You have a set amount of money that you know is coming in. It's hard to start putting that money away. But that's why I actually highly recommend starting that pattern, creating that pattern to get in the habit. Because when you do start getting more money in, it becomes easier to continue doing what you actually need to do. After all that is set up, after you have your investment account and you have your savings account, you can actually then go and open up more opportunity funds where you can put bigger chunks of money in for when you want to do some bigger investing stuff that's kind of down the line. Those are much bigger topics. We're going to talk about that possibly in future episodes. But as a freelancer, it really comes down to it being your responsibility to address those money issues. And if it does require getting more side hustles, taking on extra jobs above your job to increase your income, that's really what it comes down to. It comes down to you having the control to increase your income. Because that's the only driver that you do have control of. If you want to put in the work to do that extra bit to make that extra money. But when you do make that extra money and you start putting it away, this is a 5, 6, 10-year endeavor that takes time to build up those resources. And you have to keep at it. It's not something where, where you put in $10 one month and like, now I'm all set. It's the same as working out, where doing one workout will not make you fit. Same as opposite. Eating one cake in a sitting is not going to deter you from your fitness goals. So that's where the unpredictable part of life comes in, where the more you can have these money pools that are set aside for you and for those opportunities that come up, or those unpredictable life happenings, that's really what it comes down to. That's how you're able to control that. Where if you do go and then spend on a vacation, but it costs a little bit more than you had budgeted, that is completely okay. It's the whole, you're not going to be off track because you had that one vacation that you splurged a little bit more on. There's this whole thing with Elon Musk. He went on a vacation while he was working, or he was CEO of PayPal at the time, or working with PayPal, whatever. He was driving the company, and he went on vacation, and he caught a virus at the time, and it almost killed him. He got really, really sick, and then he came back, and he found that he'd been kind of cut out of PayPal. The board had kind of axed him from it. And he actually had this quote where it said, even a good vacation can kill you. It's everything that I've been kind of rambling about for the last few months, especially on this channel, is about coming from the freelance, self-employed point of view. You really need to understand that it does come down to you. There is no one coming to fix your finances except for you. So if you are in that population, that vast majority of population that is spending more than they earn, and it's not because of a choice. Like there's this whole mentality where only the people that spend on lavish lifestyles, that just go spend crazy all the time and buy like the most expensive stuff, are the ones that kind of get themselves into financial ruin, essentially. But it's like quicksand, where making a small purchase because it's not a big deal, or it's like I'll spend on this new piece of gear, or I'll buy that piece of software, or I'll do this thing where a project will come down the road that hasn't manifested yet, and then it doesn't, or it takes longer for that money to come in, and those frustrations build up. Like I still get to the point where I have an expectation of a client paying me, and it's delayed by a week, it's delayed by 2 weeks. I start feeling that same stress that I had years and years and years ago, where I know I'm doing so much better than I was previously. I just don't like the idea that I'll have to sell some of my assets to pay to cover because a client decided not to pay on time. I get frustrated at those moments, and it brings me down. I really don't like it, and I don't know how to communicate well enough. Like even a little bit of delay just causes stress, and that stress has been built in over time. And maybe it's a good thing because it keeps me hungry. It makes me want to do more work, but it just leads into me feeling like I'm working like too much like a workaholic. And that's the one thing that I really want to avoid. I don't want to be constantly working. Like there was a lead up into the new year where all my expenses for the year were paid. Everything was good. There was money coming in, and I just felt relaxed, and I really enjoyed that feeling. And it was a long time coming to get to that point, especially over the last years where we have all experienced stuff that's just been a complete disaster of finances and up and down. And now with inflation starting to kick in, you go in and you want to buy just paper towels, and they're like $10 more than they were. And it's just like, what's happening? So it's almost like that stress is constant, and the only thing that we can do is to be very conscious about be very deliberate on how we spend our money. Because I know they say that that you shouldn't buy that extra coffee, or that try to save, like saving on one coffee a day can turn into an extra $30-40 a month that you can then put away. But there's this whole other side of it where doing those small incremental spending habit fixes is not going to change the long-term outcome of your finances. It really comes down to someone put it in another way, where it's just like, hey, you saved $957 this year by making coffee at home, but you overspent buying that $1 million house that is now going to cost you more in the long run. So you really have to understand how saving money one way can make a big difference long term. For instance, not buying a new camera or new computer every single year because the last one is not 10% faster than the one you just bought. Like, there are really big moves that you can do. Not spending $5,000 on a camera when you don't really need to. And that's okay. If you need to upgrade your gear for the longest time, then do that. And especially if it's making you money, you can do stuff a little bit faster, then do that. Hey, Jassim, how's it going? Happy Thursday to you. You like the new setup? You like the new camera angle? I've moved to a different corner. That's and then there's enjoy the show. Nice little poster that my wife got me. Anyways. So yeah, it's really about forming those habits and about creating those money pools. There's this whole there was this whole way to work where money came in and you actually made it into cash and you put it into envelopes. That doesn't make any sense. And when you do open up other accounts at the bank, there are ways to open up accounts that are linked to your main checking account that virtually cost you nothing to open up those ones. So you have to make sure you explore your options to set up multiple accounts that you can funnel money into and really start building and filling up those pools of money. Because your retirement, your long-term savings, that's an open-ended pool that should get as big as possible. And if you can tie that into a tax-free savings account, that is also an investment account, so you can buy ETFs. That way, when you're able to cash out, you're only paying, there's no taxes that you need to pay on a tax-free savings account. So those are unlimited. Your emergency fund, again, it should start at like minimum $2,000. So build it up to $2,000 so you can cover like a really quick emergency, and then keep growing it until you get to the 3 to 6 months, and then kind of cap it at a year. I don't think you need to go above that, especially if you have lower expenses. 3 to 6 months, and you know that you can turn around and find work relatively quickly, because what your skill is actually in demand. But doing those, and then so you cap that. Once it's capped, then you can start putting more money into your fun account, which is those things that you want to buy, the upgrades, the vacations, the new car, the down payment for another house. It's this cascading effect. Once the capped ones are full, then you can go into the other ones. Or if you have enough in your fun account for your next vacation, you don't really need to do any upgrades, you can keep putting stuff in there, or you can start putting money into an opportunity fund, which is separate from your fun account. Or you can put more into your long-term investments. And I know that $10 doesn't sound like a lot. I know that $100 doesn't sound like a lot. It doesn't sound like a lot, but it literally goes like this. Like nothing happens, and then all of a sudden you just start seeing that growth. And if you can commit to a long-term plan, that money will explode exponentially, and you'll wake up one day and you'll have so much money that you won't understand how to deal with it. But having those accounts, the other main thing that you need to keep into account is don't let lifestyle creep force you to be spending more as you're earning more. You should be putting more money into those bigger chunks into experiences and into those things that are going to last longer up here in your memories. One of my favorite things is definitely going on vacation with family, with friends, with people, because those always add up to conversations years and years later where it's like, remember that time when I love that? Like we're sitting down recently with friends and we just chatted about the things that we did. We reminisced on those things. So like the money that we spent on that, like the money is gone, the experience is done, but we were able to come back and still have a good time about, like, that's the value that those kind of experiences can bring. Like how many of you talk about that camera that you had 15 years ago, or that computer? It's just like none of that stuff is going to matter 15 years from now. It matters now, but like what were the specs on it? What like it doesn't make any sense. Does that make sense? That makes sense. It does come down to you just making that decision to do those things. And I'm pretty sure that you guys have a great understanding of where your money goes every single month. Like you probably have really good budgets. You have, you delegate everything, and it's really good. But do you have that next step where you have those money pools that you've committed to adding to every single month? Like, do you have that? Let me know. Let me know. Let me know if you guys are already well ahead of this whole curve, and I'm just talking, I'm preaching to the choir. And if that's the case, I love you guys for that. If not, get your ass in gear and get yourself into those places. It does feel a little bit overwhelming when you start having like too many accounts. That's what it feels like. Why do I need another account? Why do I need to open up another account? Why do I need to do this? Like in the finance buckets helps budgets. Yes. Now, one thing that I ran into is that when I wasn't when I got to the end of the month and my money was spent, I felt like that, like, okay, I need a better budget because my budget isn't helping me do this kind of stuff. But it's not, it sounds like a good idea on the surface, but it's not actually the thing that helps you. Your budget is probably good enough, and your budget should be used for short-term stuff. It's like, okay, how much do I need for a new computer? What's going to go into that? Okay, I need to spend on that. Oh, I need to buy these extra little bits and pieces to go with the computer. There's my budget. That's a fixed cost that you know is not going to change. But life doesn't work that way. Life is completely unpredictable. You can't budget out your month and then halfway through an unexpected expense comes up, like, oh, we need to pay, X amount of dollars for a kid's school supply, or our kids have an opportunity to take this course, or there's a flat tire. Like, how do you budget that in? Unless you put a line item that says $2,000 to cover any potential expense, but that's your emergency fund, right? And then, like, does your budget also include how much money goes into your retirement fund, your savings, your tax-free savings, your that's what your budget should be. And it should be a loose guide that helps you manage your money every month, right? If you try to be so strict and really dictate where your money goes, when an unpredictable event happens, your budget is out the window, because now you have to start pulling from the other parts of the budget. So you need to have that contingency, because there's a point where bank of mom and dad is not going to work out for you anymore, and it shouldn't. You should be turning in the opposite direction, where you should be helping your parents out. And the only way to do that is to set up those money pools, those money buckets that really put money aside. Because not only do those buckets help you in overcoming those little emergencies and just having money set aside for the future, but it's when you go to get a new mortgage for a house, when you go to the bank and they ask you, well, what are your investments? When I went to the bank for the first time talking about, like, I want to get a mortgage for a house, they're like, well, what are your investments? And I was like, what investments? Like, well, I have a car. And they just kind of laughed and scoffed at me, where it's like, that isn't an investment. If you have investments that cost you money every month, those aren't investments, those are liabilities. And we need those. Your house is a liability. Your car is a liability. The insurance, the water, the phone, all these things, as much as you could sell those things and turn it into cash, but then you don't have that thing that you needed to begin with. So it's this whole catch-22 where, yes, your house is a great investment long term, but it's only a great investment if you're willing to sell it. So don't treat those things as investments if you need to be using it, even when you get into those situations. And a house and a car, those aren't things that you can quickly liquidate into cash, even if you needed to. So if there was an emergency, you can't just be like, okay, I'm selling my house today. You can't do that. So you need to have something that you can turn into cash within 1 or 2 days. That's why you have an emergency fund of like $2,000. It's just cash sitting there. And then you can have like a longer stored account, which can be in some stocks and bonds or whatever. That's a little bit safer, but it still takes you 1 or 2 days to turn it around into cash. Because you as a freelancer, I know that I'm tempted so much by buying new gear, like seeing something like, I so could use that right now. And because I hype myself up and everyone else is hyped up and everyone else is excited, I want to go and buy that. And if I had readily available cash that I can just move into someone else's bank account, I would probably buy way too much stuff. So I'm very thankful for my wife for, keeping me in check. It's like, are you sure you need that right now? Like, do you really need it? Is it something that you can rent for a project that comes up? So those are the kinds of conversations where they're tough. They're not easy. They're huge commitments. So even the small decisions have a potential huge impact. Absolutely. Yes, they do. That $10 at the beginning may seem like no contribution at all, but do it long enough where it then turns into $11, turns into $12 a month, and then you're like, well, I can do $20 a month. And then you just keep going until you have this fund of thousands of dollars that you can just keep adding to, right? And then you get a project that comes in that's even bigger. And because you're not pulling from or borrowing from anyone else but yourself, you don't have to pay that money back instantly or with any kind of extra interest or any of those things. So it does come down to you borrowing from yourself. But to borrow from yourself, you have to pay yourself. You have to pay yourself first. And that's really what it comes down to. You are worth it. Pay yourself first. Give yourself the money. You've earned it. You're the one that worked for it. So pay yourself. Put that into places that you know it's going to be very, very useful. So pairing budget without lifestyle inflation over a long time allows you to benefit from compounding interest. Do you know, I had the longest time really understanding how compounding interest really would benefit and how it actually works. Like, how does it work? Where does that compounding interest come from? If you don't have money in an investment account, there is no compounding interest. There's no such thing. If you put your money into an account and they're giving you 1.5% annually return, well, guess what? Inflation is now 6%. Now you're negative when you started. Your money's worth less than when you put it in a year ago. So I had the hardest time really understanding, like, oh, compound interest, I want to take advantage of that. How do you take advantage of it? Well, you have to put it into something that actually has interest, that actually grows over time. And when, like, I still don't have a super clear idea how compound interest actually is working for me. I know it's there. I know it's doing something, but like, how do I tap into more of that interest? But it's a simple way to break it down that I understand it is that you have an investment account, and that investment is worth 7% more at the end of each year, compounded. So then the next year it's worth 7% more because it's actually grown. It's actually become more valuable. So you say you buy a $100 stock, an ETF, and then the next year it's $107 for that same purchase. So now it's 7% more. And then the next year it's $116 because it got that whole thing became 7% more valuable. And that's how the compound. And if you have hundreds of these stocks, because you every month you bought $100 stock, or you put $100 into that investment account, that's where the compounding interest. That's how I understand it. Because there's no bank account that just pays you 7%. There's no account that's just magically there for 7%. There are bonds and other stocks that you can buy that can do that same thing. There's also dividends, stocks that you can buy that will pay you a dividend that just goes back into that account and then that grows, or something like that. There's so much to understand, and the first step is to just put in that first $10, $100, $1,000, whatever you can, and just keep going. If you can front load those investment accounts, those are the ones that do the best overall. I'm so used to making sure that the kids have everything. Maybe they don't need everything all at once. but we want to give our kids the things that we didn't have, or those opportunities. So it makes complete sense where we're just passing it down, because when we see our kids happy, it actually makes us happy. Well, that's definitely how I know we feel. So Mac has 3 accounts and trying to put aside 5 to 10% of the monthly income into these. There's also a car account where we save for 2-year car maintenance. Yeah, absolutely. Like it's the best way to go about it. And if you can build on those accounts and just keep putting money into it, and if it's an automatic deduction every month and you treat it like a bill, and I think that's what helped me, where I just set it up where it's an automatic expense. It's just part of my expenses, where the moment money drops into account, it just goes into the other account. So it helped me because I understand budgeting and expenses and whatnot from a freelancer standpoint. So Michael says he's learning to liquidate assets. He's been hoarding to move. Hold on. Yeah, he's been hoarding to move into investments or emergency funds. It was shocking when I went through inventory of good gear I have not and will not use again. Yeah, I did the same thing. When we moved into this house, we did a whole inventory of all the gear that I had. I'm like, I haven't used this in years. It's like there were sliders, there were these gimbals, and just like stuff that I don't want to be doing anymore. So why would I be holding on to this gear? And so much, it makes so much more sense, especially in my line of work, that I rent a lot of the gear and I just build a client for it. Because, if I buy that gear 5 years from now, that's not the gear that's going to be in demand. That's not the gear that the client will necessarily ask for. So I'd rather just let the rental houses deal with that, have my minimum kit, which I use for YouTube, and then doing all my interviews or small projects that I want to do that don't require a bigger budget or bigger crews. That's something that I can just do personally. So that actually makes more sense. But yeah, doing an inventory and selling that, because then if you can liquidate that and put that into those accounts where it's like for the longest time I was holding on to a not a C7. I was holding on to an EOS, what is it? EOS 1DS Mark II. I was holding on to that for a while after I bought some other cameras, and then I just was staring at it on my shelf, and I'm like, that's a $5,000 paperweight that is sitting there. Like, why don't I just sell it and liquidate it? Literally, what you said, and put that money into those investments, into paying down some of the debt, into doing different things. But again, because I didn't need it, it was more of an asset at that point than a liability, because it was already paid off. I didn't need to make any more payments on it. So that was an asset that I was able to liquidate. But again, even that isn't something that happens instantly. It took about a month for me to find the right buyer that was willing to pay the price that I wanted, and have a decent offer. So when it comes down to it, when you start thinking about the term is money bucket, but I like to think much, much bigger, like having a pool that you can fill up, because it should be abundance of cash that's going into those. And you can have a kiddie pool for your emergency fund, but then you need your investment pool, which is going to be that Olympic size. That's what you're aiming to fill up. And when you're doing a drop at a time, it may seem like forever, but just know every drop that you put in, it'll eventually double itself. So you'll get to a point where that pool can fill up really, really quick. And that's the way I like thinking about the whole money aspect of it, where if you can fill up those pools, you're going to have a great living experience. And I say that because as a freelancer, as someone that worked, my entire career for that earned income, putting money aside and having credit cards paid off, having a full checking account that I can then move money, and like every month when a lump sum of money comes in, I just put it onto a line of credit that clears off the credit, and then I move money onto the credit cards for all the expenses that I put, because I use the credit cards to buy everything every month, like all the food, all the whatever. So then the money that I already spent, that goes into the credit cards. And sometimes I'm not able to pay it off completely, and that's okay too. Just know that the more you can pay off, the lower your interest rate is going to, not your interest rate, but your interest payment is going to be. So I try to, like, if I get a lump sum and I know I won't be able to pay it off fully, I will transfer a good chunk of it onto it that I know I'm going to spend portion of that. And it's just managing that, because sometimes as a freelancer, as a contract work that you do, it's going to take time to collect all the money that you've worked for. So you need to have that breathing room of being able to live off of the credit card for a month. You have that 1 month, and then lean it over, and then pay it off the next month. And it becomes harder when we have the economy that kind of leapfrog into our faces 2 years ago now. So you have, I know a lot of people did what I did, where they pulled back on their spending. They pulled back on buying that new gear. I mentioned many times that I was ready to buy a new Mac Pro in January 2020. I was all spec'd out, it was all ready to go. I was talking with the Apple business team. We were going to do a whole purchase, and then the world just decided to shut down, and it's like I couldn't go through with it. Not because I couldn't afford it at the time, is that I had a big suspicion that this was not going to last the 3 to 6 weeks that everyone was kind of estimating at the time, everyone being very optimistic. And then all the investments that I had went woo, because the stock market panicked. But it's all about knowing when to spend on money, knowing that work is coming in that is going to be able to pay up for future investments. Like right now, there's work that's lining up that is going to be able to pay for future purchases if I wanted to, but they have to start. They have to get the ball rolling, because I'm confident enough in my work that I know that the work will finish and it'll get done. And there's contracts that are continuous. So if you have that confidence, you should also have the confidence that you're going to be able to maintain your own investments, your own spending, even if it's the bare minimum. The bare minimum in setting up your money pools is so much better than thinking about setting them up at a future date. The sooner you can do it, like the whole saying is, the best time to invest was 20 years ago, and the second best time is today. And there's always going to be financial downturns, and it's not. You always have to be careful when. I didn't sell when the stock market went like this in March 2020. I actually bought a few more as that happened, because I know that the stock market does this, and it could take a few years to get back up, but when it does. And it did. It actually rebounded relatively quickly. So all the people that sold out and didn't buy back in, they missed out on a sale of huge investments that they're the biggest companies in the world. Their fundamental, what their company's about, didn't change because the world kind of changed around them. So like Apple was on discount. Tesla was on discount. All these companies just became a huge buying opportunity. Even if you had a few $1,000s that was in your fund account, be like, okay, well, no one's going on vacation right now, so I'm going to use that money into this opportunity. And you can't set up an opportunity when everything is falling apart, like financially in the world, where everything is getting reshuffled. I wouldn't say falling apart, but everything's getting reshuffled. Those are the opportunities where the biggest companies will become on discount, and that's when you should be like, I'm just going to buy Apple stock because Nothing changed about Apple, yesterday to today, and they're going to keep doing what they do. So yeah, it's like those are the kinds of conversations I have in my head, and these are the kind of conversations that I have with you, Jassim. It's a great way to think about money that is going to be coming in, that you're going to be earning, and you're going to be putting it aside to do the things that you actually want to do. Shooting B-roll. Now I'm curious. What are you guys doing? How's the color today? I know it's a different setup. How's the color? Is the color a little bit better today? Does it feel... I know that the focusing, Mac, you're saying that the focusing isn't crazy. But yeah. Am I too dark? Do I need to... Anyways, I like it. I set up the room just to have a different feeling. I wanted to do this beforehand, before the new year. But last week the hat was overblown, but now it doesn't feel... Feels nice. Everything feels good. I may paint the walls dark, but we'll see. But so I just want you to know, I posted a new video onto this channel. I wanted to post it before I did the live stream. I did technically, but if you have an opportunity, go check out that video. Show it some love if you can. It talks about this topic specifically. And I go into more detail with graphics and how to move the money and the way a typical month would look using those the money buckets. It's a video that is as much a message for you as it is a reminder for me to just stick with the plan. Because every time I do stick with a plan that I've set out, that I've thought about, that I've let incubate in the back of my head, those are the plans that work out. Those are the plans that I feel when I'm planning them are going to work. And sometimes you just need to stick through that plan. Even if you feel like it's going like this, you have to stay the course, because if the numbers worked out initially and it is on that track, the trend is your friend. So yeah, go check out that video. It's on this channel, on the Freelance Financials channel. Go check it out. Show it some love. Give it a thumbs up. And yeah, give this video a thumbs up, this live stream, because it's not an easy topic to talk about. Finances isn't the most luxurious and cinematic thing to talk about, but I think as freelancers, as people that work for yourself, that are sole proprietors, that are sole traders, that this is the part that actually will make you excited to do your creative work better. Because if you don't have financial worries, you're gonna be way more creative, because financial worries are such a weight on the creative process that it just hinders everything that you try to do. But having that financial freedom to not choose a particular job that you didn't want to do, or having that financial freedom that, like, you know what, I need that piece of gear, it will actually help me out. So I will get it because I need it, not because I want it. And being able to make those choices confidently, they're amazing. So getting your financial house in order and being literate in the financial space as much as in your creative space, it's a beautiful thing. Anyways, I hope you guys have a fantastic Thursday. Enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy your weekend. I will see you guys next week with another video and another live stream. I'll see you guys soon. All right. Bye for now.